Some of you came here broken. You didn't say a word, but heaven heard your silent cries. You gave him your best, and he gave you his worst. He chose confusion over your clarity, temptation over your loyalty, and now he's tasting the very pain he served you. But, oh, precious child of God, let me tell you something. You were never just an option. Never. You were the answer to a prayer he didn't even have the courage to pray. But he walked away like he could do better, and now the silence he left you with has become the echo in his lonely nights. There is a quiet kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't shout. It just sits there, buried beneath your strength, behind the smile, it's the kind of pain you carry when someone you gave your heart to treated you like an afterthought. Like your love, your time, your presence was disposable. Like they could pick you up when they were lonely and put you back down when they were full again. But let me tell you something, child of God, you were never just somebody to the one who made you. God didn't stumble across you by accident. You weren't a backup plan. You weren't created to be someone's second choice. Long before that man ever made the mistake of underestimating you, God had already written your name in glory, marked your life with purpose, and called you chosen. You see, when someone treats you like you're optional, it's because they're too blind to recognize destiny when standing right in front of them. They thought you were common. They couldn't see the weight you carry, the depth of your love, the oil of your anointing. They confused your humility with weakness. They mistook your patience for desperation. They believed you'd always be there, waiting, available, hoping they'd finally see your worth. But God saw it all. He saw every moment you stayed silent instead of arguing, every tear you cried behind closed doors, every prayer you whispered at night while their actions made you feel invisible. And God said, "Not my daughter, not my son. You will not be treated like you're ordinary when I made you extraordinary." I feel the Holy Spirit even now, because somebody reading this, you've been walking around carrying shame that never belonged to you. You've been asking yourself, what was wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? And heaven is shouting over you right now, there was nothing wrong with you. You were just too much for someone who wasn't ready. You were not overlooked because you were lacking. You were overlooked because they were unprepared. You were not passed over because you were flawed. You were passed over because your beauty, your calling, your heart, all of it was more than they had the capacity to honor. But God, oh, God has never taken his eyes off of you. Before you were in your mother's womb, he knew you. While you were questioning your value because of how they treated you, God was still calling you his masterpiece. When you were wondering if you were lovable, he was loving you deeper than your mind can even fathom. Don't you know you were handcrafted by the creator of the universe? Don't you understand that the same God who hung the stars knows your name? And if he knows your name, he knows your pain. He knows what they did. He knows what they said. And he knows how hard it's been for you to let it go. But he's not asking you to stay stuck in what they couldn't see, because what they missed, God is about to magnify. What they walked away from, heaven is about to reward. You see, he has this way, this holy way of turning the rejected into the restored, the discarded into the crowned. The stone that the builder rejected becomes the cornerstone. The one they left behind becomes the one he lifts up. There is nothing more powerful than a child of God who knows their love, not because of who stays. So you don't have to beg for anyone to come back. You don't have to perform to be seen. You don't have to cry yourself to sleep another night thinking your worth depended on their recognition. You are not the sum of someone's indecision. You are not defined by someone's silence, someone's absence, someone's betrayal. You are defined by the cross, by the love that said, "It is finished," even when your heart was breaking. You were worth dying for, worth saving, worth loving purely and fully. And that kind of love isn't optional, it's eternal. The next time you feel that sting, that moment of remembering how they treated you like a temporary fix to their loneliness, I want you to remember who held you when they let go, who caught you when you were falling, who wrapped your broken heart in his peace and whispered, "You're still mine." Because when people treat you like an option, it's often because they don't know how to value someone sacred. But God does, he always has. And he's about to show you just how seen, how chosen, how precious you've always been. You were never an afterthought in God's eyes, not for 1 second. There's something sacred about being overlooked. It doesn't feel good, of course. It stings. It makes you question everything about yourself. Your worth, your beauty, your voice, your presence. It makes you wonder, was I not enough? Did he not see what I brought to the table? And the most painful part, he did see. He just didn't recognize the value of what he saw. But you know what I've learned? Sometimes God will allow a man to overlook you so he can reserve your light for a stage he was never meant to stand on. What he walked past, heaven is about to spotlight. What he dismissed, God is getting ready to elevate, because your value was never hidden. It was protected. He overlooked your loyalty, the way you stood by him when he didn't deserve it, the way you gave your time, your prayers, your presence, your heart, and asked for so little in return. He overlooked your tenderness, your ability to love without holding back, the wisdom in your silence when you could have spoken revenge, the strength in your waiting when others would have run. And he mistook that purity for weakness. But God did not. God watched every moment. He saw how you didn't retaliate when you had the chance. He saw how you prayed for him even after he left. He saw how you took the broken pieces of yourself and kept showing up, loving again, believing again, not because of who he was, but because of who you are. And God said, what he failed to honor, I will now exalt. You don't need to chase the spotlight. You don't need to beg anyone to finally see you. You don't have to post louder, dress different, shrink yourself, or stretch yourself just to feel visible. Because when God decides it's your season, nobody can ignore you. You are not invisible. You are hidden on purpose. Hidden in gray. Hidden in preparation. Hidden in healing. Hidden until it's your time to be revealed. Not to a man who couldn't carry your glory, but to a world that needs what's in you. The same man who looked past you will one day look back. Not because he changed, but because now he'll be forced to witness the rise of the very woman he couldn't handle. It's not revenge. That's revelation. That's what happens when God says, now let me show them what they missed. When you were with him, your light made him insecure. Your strength made him feel small. Your future frightened him, so he overlooked it. Because it's easier for people to walk away from what they don't understand than to sit still long enough to learn its value. But hear me, just because he couldn't recognize your worth doesn't mean you lost it. A diamond in the mud is still a diamond. A crown in the wrong hands is still what he couldn't steward. God is about to put on display. Not so you can say, look at me now, but so you can say, look what God did with what they forgot. You're not going to have to prove anything. You won't have to clap back or relive the pain or bring his name up ever again, because the blessing coming to your life will speak so loudly that every person who doubted you will hear it without a word from your mouth. There is a glow on the other side of being ignored, a grace that only shows up in the dark seasons, a power that rises out of pain. What he overlooked wasn't weakness, it was divine. And it's okay that he missed it, because he was never your mirror. He couldn't define what he didn't help build. And he couldn't carry what he was never assigned to cover. There is a God in heaven who specializes in lifting the ones passed over. He loves to use the ones the world called average. He delights in highlighting what others tried to bury. That's his specialty, taking the overlooked and turning them into the unforgettable. Don't waste your time trying to make someone notice what they chose to ignore. Don't you dare dim your light just to fit into a place that didn't recognize your shine. Instead, stand tall, stand healed, stand whole, because everything he walked away from, God is about to put his hand on. He overlooked your prayers, but someone else will be saved by them. He overlooked your vision, but someone else will fund it. He overlooked your heart, but someone else will protect it. And above all, God will showcase it. There's a version of you rising that no man can take credit for. The pain shaped it. The process refined it. And now heaven is ready to present it. So don't worry about who didn't see you. Rejoice in the God who's about to reveal you. Because what he overlooked, God will highlight. There are some people who pray for a blessing and then walk away when it shows up, not because it wasn't what they asked for, but because it didn't look like what they expected. You were the answer to a prayer he hadn't matured enough to receive. You were the blessing he wasn't ready for. He thought he was ready. He thought he knew what love looked like, what peace felt like, what loyalty required. But when you showed up with your honesty, your consistency, your heart, your standards, it shook him. You didn't play games. You didn't try to manipulate him. You simply showed up as love. Real love, the kind that covers, not controls. The kind that gives, not takes. And that level of love requires a level of maturity he hadn't reached. And that's not your fault. You didn't love too much. You didn't come on too strong. You didn't dream too big or believe too boldly. You were just more than he had the capacity to carry. You brought peace to a man who only knew chaos. You brought clarity to someone addicted to confusion. You brought stability into a heart that had only known inconsistency, and that scared him. It's easy to say you want something real, but real comes with responsibility. Real love doesn't just feel good, it requires growth. And growth requires surrender. And surrender requires healing, and healing requires truth. You were a walking truth, a mirror. You showed him who he could become, but also revealed who he wasn't yet willing to be. You didn't fail. You didn't fall short. You were not too much. You were too whole for someone who was still fractured. You were ready to build something sacred. He was still playing with what was shallow. You brought God's best, and he was still chasing temporary pleasures dressed in distraction. But hear me, just because he wasn't ready for you doesn't mean you need to shrink. You don't have to reduce your shine so someone else can feel comfortable in your light. You don't have to dim your vision to fit into a heart that wasn't built to hold destiny. You don't have to pretend to be less than divine just so someone can feel strong standing next to you. You were the blessing, the kind that would have changed his life, the kind that would have elevated his thinking, healed his heart, aligned his steps. But he wasn't ready to steward that kind of favor. And so, like so many do, he walked away from what was sacred, chasing what was safe, not knowing he was leaving the very thing he needed most. It hurts. Watching someone treat you like an option when you were sent as a covering. But trust me, the blessing didn't leave him. He walked away from it. And one day, he will feel the absence of what he didn't know how to honor. But you won't stay stuck in the heartbreak. You won't stay frozen in the season where you were rejected. Because blessings don't chase what doesn't recognize them. They move forward, higher, stronger, wiser, into the arms of those who are ready. The man who is ready for you will not flinch at your strength. He will not shrink in your shine. He will not sabotage the connection just because you see past his exterior and into his soul. He will thank God for the gift. He will treat you like the answered prayer that you are. He will protect what others played with. But don't wait for that to feel whole. You're already whole. That's why the last one couldn't hold you. Because you walked in with fullness and he was still living in fragments, and a fragmented man will always find a reason to reject what he's not equipped to receive. There are blessings that come too soon for people who have not yet surrendered. And rather than admit they're not ready, they run. Not realizing they're not running from you, they're running from the version of themselves they'd have to become in order to love you right. You were not sent to be a lesson. You were sent as a gift, a covering, a lifter, a helper, a blessing. And he was not ready. But God is not finished, because what one man couldn't handle, another will cherish. What one heart rejected, another will rise to protect. You're not going to have to explain your worth in your next season. Your presence will speak loud enough. You were the blessing he wasn't ready for. And now heaven is preparing a man who is. One who won't flinch at your depth. One who won't mistake your strength for hardness. One who won't let his fear sabotage his favor. You were the blessing, you still are. There's a deep kind of peace that comes when you realize you don't have to fight every battle. When you finally understand that God doesn't need your revenge, your clapback, your explanations, or your proof. All he needs is your surrender. Because when God gets involved, justice doesn't just arrive, it reigns. He has a way of turning the tables without you lifting a single finger. You thought they got away with it. You thought your silence meant they won. You let them talk. You let them go. You let them walk around as if they didn't break something sacred. But just because you didn't retaliate doesn't mean God wasn't watching. Just because you chose to take the high road doesn't mean heaven was silent. God sees everything. He saw how they used you. He saw how they minimized you. He saw how they took what you gave and twisted it into something ugly. He saw the lies, the manipulation, the coldness, the silence. And he also saw how you stayed still, how you kept your hands clean, how you cried in secret and worshiped anyway. How you didn't curse them even when your heart felt like it was collapsing and God said, "This one is mine and I will handle it." See, when people hurt you and walk away like nothing happened, it feels like injustice is winning. It feels like you're the only one paying the price while they enjoy their freedom. But what you don't see is what God is doing behind the curtain. He is a God of justice, but he does it his way, his timing, his strategy. And when he turns the tables, it's never just about exposing them. It's about elevating you. You didn't have to force anything. You didn't have to fight dirty. You didn't have to manipulate your way back into the picture. Because when God is involved, the same people who laughed at you will watch you rise. The same ones who thought they could break you will watch you become unshakable. The same man who thought he could discard you will witness someone else call you wife. That's the beauty of God's vengeance. It's not petty, it's perfect. It's not loud, it's lasting. It doesn't destroy for entertainment, it restores for his glory. He doesn't just remove you from the pain. He prepares a table for you in the presence of those who caused it. There's a reason you didn't have to respond. There's a reason you didn't have to clear your name. There's a reason you didn't chase them down or try to prove your worth. Because heaven had already issued a verdict. You were not guilty. You were not the villain. You were not crazy. You were not the one who failed to love. You were the one who loved too well. And while they go on pretending like nothing happened, God is making sure everything that was done in the dark is brought to light. Not to shame, not to embarrass, but to bring order. And while he does it, you won't have to lift a finger. You won't have to say a word. Your life will speak. Your elevation will speak. Your peace, your glow, your healing, your unbothered spirit, all of it will speak louder than anything you could ever post or say. Don't you know who your Father is? He opens doors no man can shut. He raises people from the pit to the palace. He flips the script in a moment. And when he says it's your turn, it doesn't matter who tried to block you. It doesn't matter who betrayed you. His favor will overshadow every failure. His glory will rewrite the whole narrative. They thought they were stepping over you, but they were stepping aside for what God was about to do. They thought they ended you, but they only launched you into your next season. They thought the silence would break you, but it only made you bolder in the spirit. They thought you were weak for walking away, but you were wise. You let God fight it. You didn't fight for position. You held your peace. And because you did, God is now fighting for you. So let them talk. Let them scroll past your name like it. Let them rewrite history to soothe their conscience. Let them carry on like they didn't mishandle the very thing that was meant to bless them. You don't have to do anything but stay aligned. Stay surrendered. Stay holy. Because when God turns the tables, it won't be subtle. It will be seen. And no one, not even the ones who walked away, will be able to deny the hand of God on your life. You're not forgotten. You're not behind. You're not disqualified. You're just being positioned. And when God finishes setting the table, every closed door, every unanswered call, every moment of silence will make sense. You don't have to lift a finger. God's already moving the whole room. Rejection never feels good, especially when it comes from someone you prayed for, someone you opened up to, someone you saw a future with. You gave them space in your heart, and in return, they handed you a closed door. And in that moment, the moment they pulled away, turned cold, walked out, or ghosted without explanation, it felt like your soul took a hit. But what if I told you it wasn't a loss, it was a rescue? What you thought was rejection was actually God stepping in and saying, that's far enough. You weren't being punished. You were being protected. You weren't being cast aside. You were being rerouted. God saw what you couldn't. He heard the conversations you weren't in. He discerned the motives you tried to excuse. He knew the weight of the future on your life, and he wasn't going to let it be delayed or destroyed by someone who only showed up half. Sometimes God's no sounds like silence. Sometimes it sounds like a breakup. Sometimes it sounds like betrayal, and sometimes it sounds like someone falling out of love and leaving without looking back. But heaven doesn't reject to hurt you. Heaven rejects to reroute you. You thought it was going to be forever. You imagined the house, the life, the ministry, the dreams together. But what you didn't know is that God had something better. Not just someone better, something better. A future that wouldn't require you to shrink, a calling that wouldn't be compromised, a love that wouldn't make you beg for the bare minimum. When God removes someone, it's not always because they're a bad person. It's because they're not your person. Not for the road ahead. Not for the level you stepping into, not for the anointing you carry. You didn't fit together. You were being fit apart. And yes, it hurt. You questioned your worth. You played the moments over and over again, trying to see what you missed, wondering what you did wrong. But beloved, this wasn't about what you lacked. It was about what they couldn't handle. You weren't rejected because you were unworthy. You were rejected because you were set apart. If God let them stay, they would have distracted you. They would have drained you. They would have detoured the very destiny you were born for. You would have been so busy trying to keep the relationship alive that you would have forgotten how to breathe. You would have watered dead things and called it love. You would have lost yourself in trying to prove you were enough. But God loved you too much to let that happen. So he shut the door, not because he was being cruel, but because he was being kind. Rejection doesn't always look like a slammed door. Sometimes it's just a slow fade. The texts get shorter, the warmth disappears, they stop choosing you, and you sit there wondering what changed. You didn't change, God did. He shifted the alignment. He started pulling back what wasn't rooted in his will. Because the truth is, they were only part of your story, not the whole book. And sometimes we try to make chapters eternal, but God writes better love stories than you ever could. He doesn't just give you what you want, he gives you what will last. That closed door, it saved you. That silence, it protected your peace. That breakup, it was the beginning of your breakthrough. You thought you needed them to fulfill the promise, but God was just clearing the path for someone who would recognize it and honor it. Let them go. Let the rejection be what it was meant to be. A holy redirection. Stop rehearsing the loss and start rejoicing in the protection. Because the longer you stare at what walked away, the harder it is to see what God is walking you into. You don't have to chase what God removed. You don't have to force what won't flow. You don't have to explain to anyone why you weren't chosen, and he's not confused about you. He's not indecisive. He's not going back and forth. He knew from the beginning who could walk this journey with you and who couldn't. So don't waste time mourning what God already called finished. Don't let temporary rejection rob you of eternal vision. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being positioned. The right one won't reject you. The right one won't make you question if you're too much. The right one won't be intimidated by your calling or inconsistent with your heart. And when that day comes, and it will, You'll look back and thank God for every time he said no, every time he allowed someone to walk away, because now you know. The rejection wasn't punishment. It was protection and redirection. He thought he got away with it. He thought you'd always be waiting, thought your love would always be an open door he could return to when he was done playing. He never imagined you'd grow stronger in the silence, that you'd heal in the heartbreak, that you'd find God in the place where he left you broken. But you did. And now the tables have turned. The same pain that once tore through your chest in the middle of the night, the same ache you had to pray through, cry through, and walk through alone. Now it's standing on his doorstep. And it's not because you wished for revenge. It's not because you plotted his fall. No, your heart was too pure for that. You weren't built for bitterness. You released it all to God. And he took note. Because heaven never misses what people try to bury. He mishandled what was sacred. He treated your loyalty like it was disposable. He treated your love like it was replaceable. But now, the silence he gave you is showing up in his own life. The disregard he operated with is coming back around. And the difference is, you're not there anymore. You've moved on, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You don't check the phone hoping he'll reach out. You don't rehearse the memories wishing he'd come back. You don't cry yourself to sleep over what could have been. You don't wait for closure. You became your own. You gave the pain to God, and in return, he gave you power. See, people don't expect you to recover. They don't expect you to glow after the fire they lit. They don't expect you to rise after they tried to bury you under their absence. But you did. Because you weren't built on their attention. You are rooted in God's affirmation. And when God is your foundation, no rejection can keep you buried. He remembers now the way you covered him in prayer, the way you stood by him even when you were the only one showing up, the way your love wasn't just words, it was presence, consistency, sacrifice. He remembers, but it's too late, because what once was his opportunity is now someone else's answered prayer. Let that sit. God is not just a restorer. He's a revealer. And now that you've been restored, he's revealing to others what was once overlooked. You were never the one who needed to change. He just didn't recognize what was right in front of him. And now the realization hits in the quiet, in the stillness, in the very same silence he gave to you. But you're not bitter. You're not waiting for his pain to validate your worth. You already know who you are. You already know what you carried. You already know what he lost. You're not seeking revenge, because you don't need it. When you move in God's grace, he makes sure you're vindicated without lifting a single finger. Let God deal with it. Let him handle what your heart no longer carries. Because when God vindicates, it's not messy, it's majestic. He doesn't just return what you lost, he multiplies it. He brings peace with no drama attached to it. He brings clarity where chaos used to live. The same pain that once haunted you now has a new address, and it's not yours. Now, he knows what it feels like to be left wondering, to pray for someone who won't pick up, to love someone who doesn't love back. It's not your job to rejoice in it, but it is your right to release it. You don't have to explain your absence now. You don't have to answer the "I miss you" text. You don't have to open a door God already shut. You're not the same woman he left behind. You're wiser now, softer but stronger, kinder but more guarded. The pain finally knocked on his door, but you've already left the house. And thank God, you're not looking back. So now you see, it was never about revenge. It was about release. It was never about proving your worth to someone who overlooked it. It was about God proving that your worth was never up for debate. What once broke you is now beneath you. What once had you crying on the floor now has no hold on your peace. The tables didn't just turn, they were reset in your favor. You didn't have to force it, you didn't have to beg, you didn't have to chase, you just had to heal. And healing was your victory. And now, as pain knocks on his door, the same pain he handed you without apology, you're no longer standing there waiting. You're gone, evolved, elevated, covered. The story didn't end with heartbreak. It ended with you choosing wholeness. And that, beloved, is the kind of ending only God can write. You didn't just survive the pain, you outgrew it. You didn't just move on, you moved up. And when you did, heaven stood and whispered, "That's my daughter."